Hello and a very good evening to you, and welcome to a brand new edition of Biz First in Focus, where we discuss the pressing issues of the country's business and economy. How is it affecting it? Is it affecting it? And how are we to resolve it? Well, I'm your host Shahid Rampad, and on tonight's program we are joined by Mr. Samantha Kumarasinghe, an industrialist and entrepreneur. Mr. Kumarasinghe, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Well, before we get on to Mr. Kumarasinghe, we'll be taking a quick recap from last week's program, where we were joined by the former Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, Dr. W.A. Vijayawardena.
We are in economic crisis. There's no amount of, talk that might be delivered by political authorities saying that the country is not in a crisis will not be acceptable to anyone who has access to information released by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka. Because every week Central Bank releases this information, and that information is very plain clear. If, as I told you at the beginning, foreign reserves are falling, freely available reserves have come down to a level of about $4 billion US, whereas our loan commitments are about $4.8 billion US. Economic growth has slowed down from around, say, 9% 5 years ago to 4% last year. Inflation is picking up from virtually zero level to 8.2%. Sri Lanka rupee is under pressure for depreciation. We don't get enough foreign direct investments, and at the same time, our main problem is conducting the necessary economic reforms in order for Sri Lanka to attain a sustainable economic growth. That is also not happening. So, based on everything that has been published by the Central Bank of Sri Lanka, anyone who has a little knowledge of economics will conclude that we are in a crisis.
Mr. Kumarasinghe, the little clip we played, Mr. Vijayawardena says that anyone with a little bit of economic knowledge knows that the country is in an economic crisis. What is your take on that?
Good evening to you, and I'm pleased to be here. And I personally feel that it is more than economic crisis. We are in economic difficult juncture, and we could find solutions to it if we manage our economy right. So it is, there are countries that have gone into bigger crises than this, but have bounced back. So it is not a problem that we cannot solve. We should be able to solve it if the governments and the people concerned can play the right role to come out of this situation.
So where can we find the root to all this economic difficulty, as you say?
We are in more than economic difficulty. We are in a foreign exchange difficulty because of many decisions that have taken place from about, I think, 2000, maybe even before that, about 1990 onwards. The investments that have come into Sri Lanka, on top of other decisions that government have taken, investments that have come into Sri Lanka as foreign direct investments, have come in to sell products to the local market and take the money out, profits out of the country. Like if you take, we have way back in around 2001, we have privatized the wheat milling business in Sri Lanka and given it to a foreign company. So today it's about a huge market of about 100 billion rupees a year, and the profits and the money they make goes out of the country. So likewise, we have around 2002 we have privatized part of petroleum distribution, and that is also to a foreign company, and that money is going out. So likewise, the telecom companies and many companies have come, mostly foreign owned, but it is not export oriented. Other countries like Vietnam and other countries who parallelly developed have invited foreign direct investment for export oriented industries. So that is the difference. So therefore the money is going out in foreign exchange from the country, leaving country driving the country towards a foreign exchange crisis, and that leads to an economic problem.
Would you say that rather than expanding our markets in the country, we first focus on resolving the issues we have within the country and then focus on expanding, or is it a one package?
It's not very clear. Your question is not very clear when you say expanding the market.
Yeah, I mean expanding, like reaching out to international horizons, as you said, foreign companies coming in. Are you suggesting that we not go into that kind of
Now, if you take the back in 1977 era, for the lot of foreign investments came in for exporting products from Sri Lanka. Garment industry was for exports, but subsequently the investments that have come are not really for export. So when foreign investments come into the country, looking at the local market, we are leading into a foreign exchange shortage, obviously. Because now, how do we get foreign exchange? We are getting it through foreign loans, foreign remittances by our poor people who go and work abroad, and tourism, and few other ways. And when it is going out without proper control, that is a crisis. Now, in 2015, if you look at the total imports of motor vehicles to the country, is about $2,300 million. And fuel imports is about $2,700 million. So those are, the money is going out. In addition to the money that is going out, as I told you, through the investments that have come into the country.
Mr. Kumar Singh, now at the beginning of my program, I said we are going to talk about the pressing issues. And I think given the context of our discussion this evening, we can talk about what can be labeled as the scandal of the century, the bond scam. Right? Now, I mean, you believe that the bond scam has massively affected the industries in Sri Lanka.
Yes, of course. Bond scam has, the people don't see that angle that much. How the bond scam has affected the industry is, if you take the interest rates that we as industrialists paid prior to the bond scam, that was up to about January 2015, we were paying interest rates of about 7% for the loans that we have taken. But after 2 years, by January 2017, the interest rates we pay for the same loans have gone up to about 14%, so almost doubled. So it is, your interest component has increased by 100%. The interest rate increase is from 7 to 14, but interest component of your loan has gone up to by 100%. For an example, if an industry had taken a 1,000 million loan or a 1 billion rupee loan prior to 2015 January, they paid annual interest of 65 to 70 million rupees. But today, for the same 1 billion rupees, they have to pay 140 million rupees. So that 70 million or 65 to 70 million rupees is going out of their bottom line. But at the same time, all the banks in Sri Lanka are making huge profits. So what has happened is the bond scam has facilitated the banks to charge additional interest, and who is paying it? The industries have to pay it. So in a country like that, where we have to compete with people from industrialists from countries like India, Bangladesh, Vietnam, those are the main three countries. It is difficult to compete with China, but at least if you are competing, we have to compete with these countries in the global markets or regional markets. Then you have to, the interest component is a big problem. If you take Vietnam interest rate is about 5.5 to 6% per annum. In Bangladesh, I am running a business, what we pay is much less than Sri Lanka. It's about 10% we pay interest.
Mr. Kumar Singh, has the industrial sector addressed this situation to the government?
Industry sector has recently taken up this issue, but this is very new. You know, the thing is now only the people are feeling the pressure, or this has gradually happened within the 2 years. So now industries have faced with this problem. I think they have addressed this issue, but we have another problem. We don't have in our country there is no ministry which is focusing on industry. There is a Ministry for Industry and Commerce, but commerce is a vast thing, including importation of food commodities like food items. So the ministers or the ministerial staff may be paying more attention to those, because those are burning issues for the masses, not like the problems of the industries.
So how do you think the government should play out this whole situation that the industries are in?
I think my personal opinion is there must be an industry, there must be a ministry specifically for industry that can be medium, large, small, micro, all industries should come under one ministry. They should focus on developing industry, and commerce can be handled by somebody else. Because then that particular ministry or minister's role is to ensure that he meets the industry people regularly and then address their issues.
Mr. Kumar Singh, we're going to cross over a short commercial break. We'll join you soon after the break.
Thank you.
Well, you're on Biz First in Focus. I'm Shahan Jarampati. See you on the other side. Hello and welcome back. You're watching Biz First in Focus. We're joined by Mr. Samantha Kumar Singh, an industrialist and entrepreneur. Before the break, we were in discussion with Mr. Kumar Singh on the repercussions and the impact the industries in Sri Lanka has had following the bond scam early in 2015. Mr. Kumar Singh, we were talking about this and you were highly critical of the issue. It's been 2 years since the scam took place and just over a month since the Presidential Commission of Inquiry commenced their investigations into the issuance of bonds. What is your take on that? What outcome are you expecting out of it?
They have to, originally it was I think about 30 days, so a few shorter period was given for them to submit the report, and now it has been extended till about September I think. So with that the report will be a comprehensive report, I suppose. We have seen many evidences that have been given by the employees of past and present employees of Central Bank. I'm sure many things have come to light, and I'm sure there will be a fair decision on this the report. To my opinion, it is a fraud, but it is to be proven, right? I mean, there are a lot of people who talk.
I'm pretty sure, like, given your statements during the show, the industries are having their fingers crossed, waiting for a very good outcome out of this inquiry.
Industries are expecting somehow or other the interest rates to come down. So if it is a reason for this one is a reason for that, then there are 30-year bonds that have been issued. So if this is reversed, then obviously interest rates could come down. So if the 30-year bonds are going to continue, then we will have to live with these high interest rates.
Mr. Kumar Singh, let's slightly shift gears. I think about a month ago at the Sri Lanka Economic Forum, an economist, Professor Howard Nicholas, made a very interesting statement. He spoke about the importance of state development banks in the country. Could you comment on that?
Yes, in fact, that was at the Sri Lanka Economic Forum 2017. I was there when he was talking also. And what he pointed out was the privatization of these development banks was a wrong decision taken by the government under the pressure from the IMF and the World Bank, and that has negated the industrial growth in Sri Lanka. So that is and the essence of what he said. And there was a minister at that event who was the chief guest. In fact, he made a request to the minister that Sri Lankan government should restart development banks if Sri Lanka wants to develop the industry. I don't think there is any other way for Sri Lanka to develop the country without developing Sri Lankan industries owned by Sri Lankan entrepreneurs, because otherwise the people coming from outside and giving employment is not going to help the development of a country. The masses of the country will not get richer if foreigners are running industries in the country. So it is not only a matter of giving employment for Sri Lankans, so you have to make the Sri Lankans rich. The masses become richer by creating wealth within the country. How do you create wealth within the country is to increasing development of industries. But because we are not a vast country to develop agriculture alone, so you have to develop industry. For 1 acre of land, industries can produce so much output, but agriculture can produce only little. So that is the criteria. That is how even Malaysia had developed under Dr. Mahathir Mohamad. So we need to have development banks. Now today we don't have development banks. That's why I said we have to pay that kind of interest. But if you look at Bangladesh, for export industries, there is a flat 7% interest that the banks can charge. It is regulated by the Central Bank of Bangladesh, called Bangladeshi Bank. So that is how those countries develop. If you take I am operating in Bangladesh for about 18 years now, running industry, and I have seen how the local Bangladeshi industries have grown. I don't get that interest rates in Bangladesh but Bangladesh industries get it because they export. I'm not exporting from Bangladesh, I'm selling into Bangladesh. So that's why I pay a slightly higher interest rate.
Mr. Kumar Singh, hold that thought. We're going to take a quick look at the statement made by Professor Howard Nicholas at the Sri Lanka Economic Forum in March.
If I had any recommendation to make to Sri Lanka on this score, I would go back to development banking. You see, this is one of the worst things that was ever done in Sri Lanka, the privatization of the NDB and the DFCC. And the reason is all these countries, all the successful countries I mentioned, had one policy, and one policy only that was the absolute bedrock of everything they did, and that was development banking, state development banking. And one of the important things about state development banking, it allows companies to acquire the advanced technology.
Mr. Kumar Singh, we were talking about now the importance of state development banks. So the question is, you spoke about several success stories like China, Vietnam, and Bangladesh. They've been successful in using state development banks. So what does it take for Sri Lanka to start or to initiate state development banks?
We have had development banks in the past, like NDB, DFCCs were our development banks, but those have been privatized with the recommendations of IMF, as Professor Howard reveals now. And after that, there was no development bank dedicated for the developing industry. So I have seen development banks advertising for leasing of cars. So they are the namesake development banks now. So it is not a real development bank. Real development bank should identify industries who can develop to a global level or to the regional level and support them. And the government should be committed to give them facilities. In difficult times, even extending the loan periods and facilitate them. If not, the development of industry is going to be only a dream. It's not possible.
Speaking of industries, Mr. Kumar Singh, again, what are the difficulties the industries are facing today at present?
Now you can hear some officials talking about comparing Sri Lanka with countries like Vietnam. Vietnam is a communist regime with capitalist system, and there is one policy. There is no change in policies. There is consistency. But in democratic countries like Sri Lanka, there is always uncertainty. Whether right or wrong, I am not saying that system is right or wrong. Vietnam is going in one direction, and the industrialists can develop. The policies are set, and those are not changed every 5 years. That's the advantage. So we have so many uncertainties in our systems. For instance, the previous governments, 2 years or 2 terms of previous governments, the value-added tax was brought down. This government increased it. So that is hitting the industry in a big way. And then at the same time, the imports are more liberalized now than the past. So there is a change in policy. Then the industrialists are hit. So it is very uncertain situation in Sri Lanka. We must have industrial policy for Sri Lanka irrespective of what government rules. So we haven't even started negotiating a proper industrial policy for Sri Lanka. That's the issue.
Well, thank you, Mr. Kumar Singh. We are going to cross over another short commercial break. Well, Mr. Kumar Singh thinks that Sri Lanka needs one policy to move ahead. You're watching Biz First in Focus. See you on the other side. Hello, welcome back to the program. You're watching Biz First in Focus. We are joined by Mr. Samantha Kumar Singh, an industrialist and entrepreneur. Mr. Kumar Singh, we were talking about the issues the industries in Sri Lanka have, and you reckon that it's a matter of policies. Apart from policies, are there any issues the industries are facing in Sri Lanka?
Yes, many. Like we don't have enough people to find right people for the right positions. If you advertise today for a job, only a very handful of people apply, and then even from that, you can't select the right people because a lot of people have migrated from the country. And Sri Lanka's total labor force is about 8 million people. Out of that, about close to 2 million are abroad. close to 1.5 million people are on three-wheelers. They are driving three-wheelers. So you are left with only about 4.5 million people to serve the industry. So that is why you see many construction projects today bringing foreign labor, legally or illegally they are bringing. So that is how the things happen. So there are many other problems for the country, for the industrialists in the country. So because of that, the industries must be supported to grow if the country is looking at exports. If not, the country should not talk about increasing exports. So you on one hand you have a target of 20 million exports by 2025, I think. $20 billion exports by 2025. But there is no infrastructure development for the industry and other policy support for the industry to produce those. How do you do that? You can't just simply export if you are not competitive. To make them competitive, you have to make them strong. How to make them strong is in their own country. You have to find them a market. If your market is within the country, you can make your profits there, and you can go with your exports to make that extra profit. So you can invest this money in other countries. But even in the industries, for us to invest in other countries, there are a lot of limitations. As a Sri Lankan resident, even today the rule is that we cannot invest more than $100,000 in another country. I repeat, $100,000 is the maximum limit you can invest in another country as a Sri Lankan citizen living in Sri Lanka, resident citizen. But we can import any junk to the country for $1 million. There is no regulation to stop that. What I mean is any car or anything that you can import to the country, there is no limit. But there is a limit in investing in other countries. So these are policies that you should think and change and develop.
Mr. Kumar Singh, speaking of skilled labor, you said so many millions are driving three-wheelers now, so many millions have migrated. So how do we resolve this? We can't just take away three-wheelers from them and just say focus on the industries.
I think there should be some regulations to make sure that at least the three-wheeler drivers who are of course they will strike and there will be a lot of issues. But I think we should educate this to them and then bring them to the workforce rather than being sitting inside the three-wheeler for 6 hours and working only 2 hours. Basically, their running time is, if you go to a three-wheel park, anytime you can see about 6, 7 or 10 idling. They're not running. So that is unproductive time. And it is youth who is sitting in those. So there are countries where if you go to Singapore or someplace, you see elderly people driving taxis. So we can bring in some regulations like that. I don't know how to do that. It is up to the government. But
so, Mr. Kumar Singh, what can Sri Lanka do to retain this skilled labor or talents that you speak of?
Of course, we have to pay the right salaries. The salaries have to go up. That is why I said it is important to create wealth within the country and retain that wealth within the country. Then only the people can be paid that. But if this is going to be only a cheap labor market for foreigners to come and set up their factories, then this problem will be an eternal problem.
Again, you constantly spoke of the crisis the industries are in, caused by, as you mentioned, the bond scam. So how do you intend on getting out of it? Do you expect to get out of it like anytime soon?
I think the situation is not that good for the time being. It might take some time, but at least the government should look at this very seriously without going by the advice given by these neoliberal economists who just tell you buy from the cheapest place and consume. It is not going to help. So what will happen to, for instance, if you grow potatoes in Sri Lanka, it is more expensive than bringing it from outside. But that growing potatoes has so many industries behind, including supplying the manure and the worker, so many things. So if you import, all those industries, the supporting industries will also close. What can they do? So then they will also have to find employment in another country and go and do cheap labor jobs in another country. So these are issues that we have to look at. Certain areas we have to address with a more national economy point of view. Like now it is happening in even the most developed country in the world, that is in the US. Right or wrong, they have realized now those neoliberal policies are wrong, and that has done damage to their country. Their own countrymen are suffering, and that is why people have changed the governments.
Mr. Kumar Singh, there is a genuine concern. The Sri Lankan government are entering into free trade agreements with countries like China, India and Singapore. What is your take on that? Do you have any concerns on these FTAs?
Certainly, we have already a FTA signed with India and Pakistan. India was signed in 1998 and operational from 2000. Pakistan agreement was signed from around 2005 and operational. But both trade agreements have not brought any benefit to the country. Our trade gap has widened with both countries. Our exports are going really to countries we have no trade agreements. So we are not, as industrialists, are not shouting to get free trade agreements. We are shouting to get us fair treatment like the other industrialists get in their own countries. Cheap bank interest rates, reasonable labor regulations, and strike-free environment. So those are things that we are asking for. We have one of the most stringent labor laws in the world. So with that, we have major problems of firing people. There's issues. So without correcting those, addressing, all parties should look at leaving the political differences aside. Look at this as if they want to develop the country. Industry must be developed. Without that, it is difficult to develop the country.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Kumar Singh, for joining us on the program Biz First in Focus. It was an absolute pleasure having you with us. Well, that has been Biz First in Focus. Mr. Samantha Kumar Singh, an industrialist entrepreneur, he gave very few recommendations. He suggests that the industries in Sri Lanka are in a bit of a pickle following the bond scam in 2015. And he also suggested that Sri Lanka have consistent policies to improve the industries in Sri Lanka, and recommended that to retain skilled labor in the country, the government pay higher wages to its employees. Thank you very much for watching. I'm Shahan Jarampati. You have been watching Biz First in Focus. See you next week.